It was the morning of the first day of the state legislature in January of 2018. And I'm walking across the rotunda floor with the President of the Senate. And he's got my flyer in his hand. We've been talking about things for, 4 or 5 years. And we're walking across, and I said, what can we do to get this bill written up? And he said, but it's against the law. And I said, so's the U.S. Department of Education. And so that was probably about the last conversation we had, because he retired from the Senate the next year. But what I want to talk about tonight will seem a little crazy at first. But if you pay attention, listen to it, digest it, then you might say what Rob Bishop said one time. He said, this is exactly what we need to do. Okay? So I'm not here to talk about why we should disconnect from the U.S. Department of Education. We all know why. I'm here to talk about how. All right? So here's my proposal. The U.S. Federal government, and including the Department of Education, use threats of withholding federal funds to try and control us and get us to do what they, in their top-down wisdom, want us to do. And it's kind of an interesting system because the federal government extorts our money through taxes, right? Our money, and then uses our money to hold us hostage. What a great system. How do we set that up? And that's the problem, is it's our money in the first place. So let's talk about disconnecting from the U.S. Department of Education. The first thing will happen is we'll lose the money, right? We have to turn away the money in order to disconnect and ignore them. So we do that, what do we have? We have a shortfall. So then we've got to have taxes go up, right? In order to make up that difference. So my proposal is different than anything I've ever heard. My proposal is to disconnect from the U.S. Department of Education on a revenue neutral basis. Okay, so revenue neutral, what does that mean? It means that we decline any federal funds from the federal government and end up ignoring the Department of Education. So here's the proposal. It's pretty simple. The Utah legislature has to pass a new bill, creating a new law that creates a new tax form. I call it the form PC 1040. Okay? It only has 3 lines, so it's very simple, and here's how it works. Line 1, you enter your federal income tax due off line 63 of your 1040. Then you multiply that number by a factor, the aggregate of which would be the money we would have received from the federal government for education. You put that number here, you subtract it from the first number, and enter the difference here. Then you send the IRS the amount on line 3 instead of line 1. And you send the net to the state of Utah. All right? So what do we have? We have revenue neutral, right? Revenue neutral to the federal government. Why? Because they collect less, but they pay less. Neutral. It's revenue neutral to us because we pay less to the IRS and more to the state, but we pay the same amount in taxes. And so it's a revenue neutral approach. Now, what do you think the response of the IRS and the federal government would be if Utah passed this law? Well, We can guess, right? They're not going to be very happy. They don't like to give up power. They don't like to give up money. And so we need to delay the implementation for about 2 years so we can go out and engage and recruit other states to pass this same legislation to join with us. Because standing alone will be much more difficult than if there were 10 or 15 states that banded together with this same approach. So this will really change the conversation on a national, maybe even a global level. And that's really one of the purposes, is to raise the issue. But still, the number one obstacle to doing this is our state legislature. So I was talking, it was April of 2018, I was talking to one of our state representatives, and he said this to me. He said, I will never vote for a bill that conflicts with federal law. And I said, what? That's exactly what your job is. Under the U.S. Constitution, the only job the state legislature has is to keep the federal government in the box inscribed by the U.S. Constitution to prevent federal overreach. That's their only job. And here he's saying, I'm not going to do it. And I ran into the same problem with the President of the Senate. But it's against the law. Well, okay, how is that any different than legalizing marijuana in Utah in spite of federal regulations? Aren't we nullifying that regulation anyway? Same thing. That's exactly what we need to do. But we got to attach the money to it, or it's not going to work. So it's critical that we get this passed. It's critical because it becomes a tool for the legislatures to start taking back the rights and powers we have. Please sign this letter of support tonight. Please call your senator and representative and tell them you want to disconnect. Please talk to your family. Have this crucial conversation with everybody you know. We need to do something about this situation, and we need to do it before it's too late. It's time now. We're the ones we've been waiting for. We need to cut the strings and starve the beast. Thank you.